You're welcome to Adkwart Studios. Please, if you are black, they call us black, but we are not black. We are not black, but they call us black. But well, if you are an African or black man, please take your time and watch this video. Before Africa was divided, it was the mind of the so-called white. They are also called white, but they are not white. Now you can see. Now I've never come across any white person on this earth. They call them white, they call us black. Well, the reason of calling us black, carefully watch this video. Before there was kingdom and empires and rich. Africa is rich. Africa is rising. We will get there. We will get there. I said, the road may be crooked and paved, but we will get there. If Africa will come together as before, if Africa will know our common enemies and take away, the barriers and voice out as one person, no nation can fight or stand against Africa. Africa is bold. Africa is wise. Africa have the spirit of creativity. We will not allow this to die. I'm one of Pan-Africa. We teach our children a history of other people. We don't teach our children our own history. So at times, our history cannot be traced. So pay attention and listen to or watch this video. If you are a black man, Yonko.
Before Africa was divided by foreign hands, it was a continent of kingdoms, trade routes, empires, and rich civilizations. But in the late 19th century, a storm was brewing in Europe, one that would forever change Africa's fate. This is the untold story of how an entire continent was stolen without a single battle on its soil. This is the scramble for Africa. The Berlin Conference. Africa was not invited. In 1884, in a cold room in Berlin, Europe's most powerful men gathered to decide the fate of a continent that none of them truly understood. This is the story of betrayal, greed, and the carving of Africa, without a single African in the room. By the late 1800s, Europe was hungry for rubber, gold, ivory, and power. Industrial revolutions demanded resources. Empires craved expansion. Africa, vast and rich, became the prize. In November 1884, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck invited 14 European nations and the United States to Berlin. Their goal, avoid war over Africa by dividing it like slices of a cake. No African leaders were invited. No kings, no chiefs, no elders. The continent's future was redrawn without a single African voice. Borders ignored cultures, languages, and history. Britain claimed East and Southern Africa. France took the West. Belgium, under King Leopold II, seized the Congo, not for Belgium, but for himself. The continent was carved like meat on a platter. Leopold called it the Congo Free State. But it was anything but free. His soldiers cut off hands of workers who didn't meet rubber quotas. 10 million died in one of history's forgotten genocides. African kingdoms sent envoys, wrote letters, pleaded for peace. They were ignored. Their words never made it past European ears. Their lands, cultures, and sovereignties reduced to zones of profit. By 1900, over 90% of Africa was under European rule. Entire civilizations disrupted, languages outlawed, cultures demonized. But seeds of resistance were already beginning to grow. Africa was not at the table, but it was on the menu. The Berlin Conference set in motion a century of pain, resistance, and survival. But this is not where the story ends. To understand Africa today, we must first confront the lies told about its past. How Africa resisted colonization. They came with guns, lies, and flags. But Africa did not kneel quietly. From mountains to coasts, from forests to deserts, resistance blazed across the continent. This is the story of defiance, of warriors, kings, queens, and common people who stood against an empire. In Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik II saw what was coming. He armed his people, trained his army, and read the treaties they tried to twist. At the Battle of Adwa in 1896, Ethiopian forces crushed the Italian army. It was a victory that shocked Europe and gave Africa hope. In West Africa, Samurai Touré built a powerful empire through trade and strategy. When the French came, he fought them for over 16 years, using guerrilla tactics and diplomacy. In today's Nigeria, Queen Amina of Zazzau had already built walls and commanded armies centuries before colonizers arrived. And when they did, new queens like Ya Asantewaa of the Ashanti took up arms. In 1900, she led the Ashanti Rebellion against British forces, declaring, "If the men will not fight, I will." In the South, Shaka Zulu had long before revolutionized African warfare. His legacy inspired later Zulu uprisings, as well as resistance in Zimbabwe by the Shona and Ndebele under leaders like Mbuya Nehanda and Lobengula. Resistance wasn't only on battlefields. It was in poems, prayers, schools, and silent sabotage. Africans refused to be erased. They protected languages, passed down stories, and sang songs of freedom in secret. This was not a silent suffering. It was an unrelenting resistance. They may have lost battles, but they planted seeds, seeds that would one day grow into liberation movements. The scramble for Africa was not one-sided. The spirit of resistance burned brightly, and it still does. Divide and rule. How Europe controlled Africa. When brute force wasn't enough, Europe turned to deception. They called it civilizing, but it was divide and rule, the silent weapon of empire. They separated tribes, favored some over others, and planted seeds of distrust that still grow today. In Nigeria, the British ruled indirectly, giving power to certain chiefs while weakening others. They labeled some tribes loyal and others hostile. In Rwanda, the Belgians created ID cards based on ethnicity, Hutu or Tutsi, drawing artificial lines that would later explode in genocide. They made Africans speak foreign languages, swear loyalty to foreign kings, and believe foreign religions. In Congo, they taught the children to hate their own culture and worship their oppressors. They created a world where African identity was punished, and European mimicry was rewarded. Schools erased heritage, churches demonized traditions, and media portrayed Africans as inferior, uncivilized, and incapable. But beneath the surface, resistance simmered. African intellectuals wrote, questioned, and remembered. Secret schools taught truth, and griots, poets, and parents kept the stories alive. Divide and rule was designed to make Africans forget who they were, and to ensure they never united. But they underestimated the power of memory, the economic theft of a continent. They said they came to civilize, but they came to steal. The real reason for the scramble for Africa was greed. Gold, diamonds, rubber, oil, cocoa, cotton. Europe carved the continent to feed its factories and fill its vaults. In Congo, King Leopold turned forests into death camps. For every ton of rubber, thousands of hands were severed. In South Africa, diamonds and gold were dug from the earth by black laborers under brutal conditions, enriching empires abroad. In Ghana, cocoa wealth left the country poor while Britain grew fat. Colonial railways weren't built for Africans. They were built to move resources from mines to ports. The ports were lifelines, not for Africans, but for Europe's industries. Even taxes were twisted. Africans were forced to pay money, but the only way to earn it was by working in colonial enterprises. It was theft disguised as development. Colonizers called it progress, but they owned the companies, the land, the banks, the schools. Africans became labor without rights, consumers without wealth, and tenants on their own soil. Every profit flowed out. Every loss stayed behind. Even after independence, debt and unfair trade kept the pipeline open. And still today, Africa bleeds wealth through exploitative contracts, foreign control, and corporate colonialism. The scramble never ended. It just changed names. But truth exposes theft. The scramble's legacy in modern Africa. The scramble may be history, but its shadow still lingers. Borders drawn by Europeans still divide families, tribes, and nations. Not by logic, but by colonial convenience. Conflicts rage where lines were never meant to be. In some countries, 5 major languages compete for power, none of them African. Roads still lead from mines to ports, not between towns. Schools still teach European heroes, not African ones. Laws written by colonizers remain untouched. Courts favor those who speak the old imperial language. Even democracy itself was copied, not open. And still today, Africa bleeds wealth through exploitative contracts, foreign control, and corporate colonialism. The scramble never ended. It just changed names. But truth exposes theft. The scramble's legacy in modern Africa. The scramble may be history, but its shadow still lingers. Borders drawn by Europeans still divide families, tribes, and nations. Not by logic, but by colonial convenience. Conflicts rage where lines were never meant to be. In some countries, 5 major languages compete for power, none of them African. Roads still lead from mines to ports, not between towns. Schools still teach European heroes, not African ones. Laws written by colonizers remain untouched. Courts favor those who speak the old imperial language. Even democracy itself was copied, not rooted. The result? A continent trapped in someone else's blueprint. The economy remains extractive. Africa grows what it doesn't eat, eats what it doesn't grow. We export.
I believe this is an eye-opening message for every African. Try to share with, send it as many as you can. Yɛte deɛ ɔkae ne nyinaa na wotia ɛyɛ awerɛhosɛm sɛ wiase nyinaa kokosiae Berlin conference for Africa anka ho na aho na Africa ye haw ahye na huru na Africa wo nka mesese Ghana ni bia no o second message we ya sendema onua bi na yentie sa history wonim se wabo Ethiopia nkoa ne oman a Africa ha sei abrofo na ntimi ani won so enti Ethiopia womo an shabrofo bi ase utie ya womo ni abrofo no coin obo ya santo adin obo Nigeria na nya bete se omo fa Africa hwe se one continent and the wiase nyina ka wona adwena bom se omo ne ebedi asi na utie ya ade ompo modin se omo de hye betoto Africa ntem na omo asai ye system ani ewo se Africa eno ne ye haw ani yamane ewepemene omo je ya nipa wo ya nsem nyina ena omo di omo wo ebehye ya dwem enti yemu bi esu ne yemban te se mutimi yete se broni a ena ukọ wanim se school of Ghana na ya twiro abo se vernacular is prohibited se akola bi ekatwi ana oka ne kasa ye behwe ne se de waye bone ne yakwa akogina no aka se abrofuna be wiare ya me ye ho kwan ache dodo well edenya mi ase ba bia nyankopon de ya beduro bia but the dru baby na okoni nkrofo bia wo mo adwen ya won se na wo mo akọ school esne wo a on adwen mu no they look down on you. I don't have to understand algebra before I become a successful or a rich man or long division. Ye won krofo a putoka sakura no oka bi obefi oka brofo obefi eso ye odifo. I said we will get there. Africa will get there. What is say na oka ya santo asense eduru ba bia no ememma mu a won ho ya santo sorry say monko aye beko agukoduro ewa bibi mem senye adam bo na ye bo wa bibi mem a kohwe mbrantie eni maba wa hia se bor kura na ye nka kotoko yanka has yanka oh asna ma dwen ko honti unim mani jibor pa be edura be mi hunu ye se eye time wasting ye promote nkrofo sen se adi ana ye me yapa ni se obi adwen ni se oye abrofosem na o look down David what be forward there bachelor of ye bibini she history oka omo hunu ye se omo amomodin na ongan say system no a omo ho bachelor omo na okasem bi ma ekanya me osi na omo ye no na omo yere free say ebedru baby ama Africa sa sorry bi and this is the time for Africa No, this is the time for Africa. Enti mo daso se abrofo no use mo se mo no manum begu ase o. Because utie history where now you bibini pa se yeni a ye wo ye koku ye wo rubber ye wo ye diamond na ye mom ye adwumaden na omu sa be fa niema wo ye free na ye adwumaden abra ye nya katuan free mu enti nra mi busa I say kebi ma min kebi ayema abibifo o si before say omu ban na ye wo ya hindie na ye wa himfo enti mre mi kan senka ye betumi asesa system no a ne ye jai MP 7 no nanka ye to abai ema president a na wa yusu ahimfo no ene wa nya odi yi a ye wa wasem because na ya hinie no edi obuo kakra mi minim no obeka se na apostle na ka se se me nyame di pa but me so sonsem fon so sembi o hon mo a said ye enne ye di Christosom aye niema bi a se ya na Bible no na omo ntia se o se die yo tia na nkrofo bebre fi se sa me gi awrade di ye no me ka se awrade ani mo nyam se me di madwen akanyame a mesom no and I don't know. Story bia maka ho asem bia no. Me wira ahododo. Nya me wira ko se abrofu no, me wira ko ni se yenti ye ho ase se abibifo na yentumi nyina. Na ade ye dia ne yengie. Ye wa asase niema wo mu. Na sebi we de mamento enye bin madwen a ebomu a se ye wo gold wo hase na ya ka kire wo se o free China ba na wo de okokotu gold na fa gold no kokrom na be ye kwa amaye nyansa be na wo sa asem we mu ye wo Japan emre bi me ka asem wo nchiro me yobia entia na nkrofo si na je kwaten wasam de nyama sam na di o me ya nkrofo nyankopon abo on bia ye gina ma de kware on betututu nsuo bi ewo ye kwan yi so me question na on question why because empany for na jiska and omo yes ade no wora aye nsuo na omo tuo no omo tu anwea no a na omo de aguti patrok no omo de ko and I'm saying what man no want to go no ma ba dey betutu nsu ama ho na wani age ne de mfidie na besi wo no ne abetwem gold nyina akọ na wasa abesam wo mfi no akọtena wo say na you know we are from poor continent and if you can help us with money for you na ohwe anima no aka say wonim da tie na ebefa wonim sika ewo mu a wonim sika ewo mu nsa asimu a nka mo ma hasem basra de da hwe nsem ya otie ya no bomodi ana ko tie biem almost before say omo ba abibiman ha no na abibiman yani abi but on be ka kire en say ye nkurasefo aye nimude wo de ko history na hwe nkrofo mo aye niema kese say wonya bibifo wo mu a but ayo ho sam ni say se wo wa hunu se de nyame asi abọ wa emre me catch brody bi se omuni abekosem ashino me akwadwuma na me supervisor ye katwi osere And I can say, the Profoca say, what's it? Because I can own. And I'm Sibino Cabrofo. It didn't mean no one international. Become Krum Casa won't it? Now, Brofono said, O Casam Nashina, not almost so Jinamuja. A shino. Now, she had that, yes, serious. What was it? Hey. Media, we will GDA pass, ye bedrow. Africa bedrow. Is it Oceania? I'll start because revival be starting kakra across out. Say Ocean, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Mami, Nubino, and Sierra Leone. Oh, a quank kakra across. We are not the next year. There be your mamma quite be want to 2 million free. Yes, uncle. And no na abawon die just say abawon pisa woman who the omunyano because omunim history said the Africa city be the man say be she boxing no say ye kan agura boxing e free tete wan din pa na wo beti wo boxing e wan din okay bobo ye kan adwum to ewiase nyina o memo assignment bobo ye kan basketball ye kan mirika kika wonu nyina bom na hunu yese Africa ye sonko enti emradu say sorry. Na ye jeja ya homa niema fire se titru Ghana. Emrantia mo ya de adwuma ya monsan. Munja ya hantan no. Munja ya hantan no. Na mo bebre hod ma manyini asene Ibrahim Traore. Munja ya hantan no. Na monwen se bepem ne nkurasi bi wo hod mo a omuni nsuo no. Baby hod ma Ghana baby hod ma ayi what they say Ghana eko munja hantan no na ye tu abana ya maye kokoti Ghana amanyafo maye kokoti sene ewiase ya modia no na yen sanko yechi se ye yi se pania ni ase dwen akola bi owa kurasi a ohuna mane Ibrahim Traore kan sembi o si o man koso nkyere se ye ntete nkwala no ekwan betimi atutuo ne wo ye nkyere nkwala no ene bie e wo school mesi mitie history well tie na hu ye se abibifo ye nyembobo wonnim obi kasa say ye kasa onipa we wabin a that means oh na no ne brofo ya mobo say ye ne ye katwi na ye katwi ayi na nanumu afu me kasa no me katwi am say oni wonamfo no mokra no na wo de utra ye ebia ye ma ko school nti brofo kaka brofo nati e won say ase ye twetwe brofo si dan because ye nim nia ye wo say ye nim nia ye wo a ya santo asori ya obabasia gina yese no amfa woni atua omo no ye level 400 on no ye level 400 mum ye njai na ye nya de ebema oma we yakoye ni Egypt ɛhyɛ aseɛ yɛ nneɛma kɛseɛ na wɔn a na ahome yɛn so saa ma yɛatena ase na mpanimfoɔ kasɛm bi sɛ obi bɛbo na wayɛ gu ho deɛ wɔapɛ kokoa bi kɔkɔyɛ gu ho a ɛbɛboa menim sɛ one day Africa will get there. Though the road may be rough, the enemies will try to hinder us. They will create obstacles. They will come with manipulations, with their tricks and whatever. But if Africa will stand as one body, I want to assure you we will get there. We will get there. If Africa will not discourage and strengthen ourselves and strengthen each other and bury our differences and say no, as long as I'm black, I have to stand for a black continent. We will get there. I want to assure you we will get there. Nobody, no demon, no power will resist Africa. Africa, arise and shine. God bless you for watching. Bye-bye.